We're going to go ahead and get started this morning. So welcome in. It's a great day today. It's like the perfect weather outside. It's not too cold. It's not hot. I love the raininess because that means I don't have to sit outside. It's just what it is. But anyway, I want to give honor to my pastor and first lady for giving me the honor of speaking up here. We don't take this lightly. This is a great opportunity for us to grow because what you know, you've got to give it to get it. Like Pastor says all the time. But this morning, I'm going to talk about a few of my favorite things, kind of like the Christmas song, which is pretty typical when I speak up here because it's really, really easy to talk about, first of all, myself. I know a lot about me. It's also easy to talk about Jesus, but if you're in this room or if you're scrolling through social media right now and you've somehow listened to this video, just tune in for a few minutes because I promise you this is for you. But I'm not sure if any of you, besides one exception, Miss Paula, are list people. I am a list person. I love lists, from grocery lists to to-do lists, even pros and cons, goals. I make them all. If it's a list, I promise you I've made it at least once or twice. I make monthly lists, I make weekly lists, I make daily lists, and I even make hourly lists. I'm just a list person. It's what it is. I've even made HTML coding lists, which is how you make websites. A list is a beautiful thing. I don't always accomplish everything on my list, but I definitely at least write it down, so I attempted to do something. I feel like if I didn't make lists, I would go completely crazy. Not that I'm already on the verge or anything, but I feel that I wouldn't accomplish anything if I didn't have my lists. Some things that's always discussed around Christmas time is your Christmas list, or the list that Santa makes and he checks it twice. You know, people make a list of gifts they want you to get, or the things they need, they want, or just really they think are cool. Lists can be for many things. And this time, we're going to talk about a few different types of lists. So, as always, buckle up and enjoy this crazy ride because we're going to go a few places. The title of my lesson is Making a List, Checking It Twice. But we're not going to find out who's naughty and nice. We're just going to make a list, all right? So, when I think of lists, I can literally take a deep breath. A list. Because it tells me what I need to do, what I need to accomplish, what's going on. If you didn't know, I'm here to inform you that there are many types of lists. I've just named some. We're not going to go through all of the types of lists, but we're going to go through three main types of lists and how they interact with the Christmas story. And I might give you a little nugget of something in one of these lists that you can hold on to. And if that's it, if it's just one thing, that's all I'm good with. Because if anything, at least I'm talking to myself, and that's really all that matters. So one of these lists is a descriptive list, okay? You know, like name the 3 words that most describe Christmas. And, you know, I always talk to my students. Well, when I was teaching English, I would ask my students that and come up with these random words. And the top 3 would be joy, peace, and love. If you research that, it would be joy, peace, and love. Sometimes Noel's throw in there, but we're just talking about the top 3. Listing these 3 out, though, I think about the Christmas story, you know, birthing a baby. And I'm like, I don't know if there's anything joyful or peaceful about birthing a baby. I myself have never birthed a baby, but I have friends that have children, and there's nothing joyful or loving about the actual act of giving birth. But after the pain, there is a sense of love and joy, and there is sometimes some peace in there whenever they're sleeping. But anyway, after the pain, like I said, joy and love is delivered. But peace, where can you find peace in the Christmas story? Like Mary gave birth. It was birthing. She had no medicine for it, so it was painful. Then she had the love and joy on Jesus' face, obviously, when she held him. But where is the peace? Because babies cry all the time. Where is the peace at? Well, an angel actually makes a statement to the shepherds when Jesus was born. In Luke 2:14, it says, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth, peace, goodwill toward men." This list, the love, joy, and peace, is a proclamation to me of what Christmas should bring: joy, peace, and love. By the way, these 3 things can't be bought on Amazon. They can't be shipped to you by UPS. Maybe momentary joy, like when you get that really good espresso maker, but it's just a momentary thing. It's not something that's going to last forever. If you want it to last forever, if you want these 3 things, joy, peace, and love, to be permanent residents of your life, you need to have a Christ-centered life. So, like I've said before, I've taught English. I love Shakespeare. Okay, he's my man. It's just what it is. He's real weird. It's what it is, okay? If you find a Shakespeare in today's world, let me meet him. I hope he's not married. It's what it is. So Shakespeare actually made this statement in one of his speeches: all the world's a stage, and all the men and women are merely players. And you think, what does that have to do with anything? Well, every Christmas, it should remind us that on our stage, Christ should have the spotlight. So if you want love, joy, peace in your life, residence, not just in this season, but for a lifetime, you've got to have Christ on your center stage. That's how it is. Paul also said it in Galatians 2:20. It says, I have been crucified with Christ, and no longer I live, but Christ lives in me. The life that I now live in my body, I live in faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. In this verse, Paul is making a declaration that on his descriptive list, you'll find the attributes of Christ, and that Christ had the spotlight. So when Christ has the spotlight on your stage, peace, love, joy will be 3 things that you'll have in your life that can be on your descriptive list if you decide he'll have center stage. What does your descriptive list look like right now? What does yours look like? Would it be like mine, anxious, overwhelmed, drowning? There's so much going on right now. In my world, I'm a school counselor, so we're doing testing, and we're doing online school, and we're in person, and then we're online school, and then we're in person, and then we don't really know what's going on. There's just so many things. But those 3 things are not found in God. So when I think about that, and I think about my descriptive list, I'm like, okay, I've got to rearrange this list. I've got to rewrite this list. This list is wrong. And the best thing, or the best feeling about a list when you actually write it out with pen and paper, not on your phone, is crumbling it up, throwing it away, and starting a new one. So throw away that list that you've described, anxious, overwhelmed, feeling like this. Throw it away and start a new list. And think about the attributes of Christ. Okay? Christmas story. Another type of list is an inventory list. Now, I worked in sales at a local boutique before, and when we did inventory lists, that's making a list of everything you have in the store, currently possess. An inventory list is not a list of things I want. An inventory list is things that you have. So when you're making this list, sometimes we get distracted and we think about things that we don't have versus what we do have. You know, it's like when you think about her talents, his athleticism, that house, their kids. And unfortunately, when we make those lists and we dwell on them in that category, you become a green monster. Not the Grinch, but jealousy. That's what happens. You become jealous. And that's on God's list of things not to do. You're not supposed to be jealous. It's one thing to enjoy what someone else has. Like, I can look to pastor's family and say, this is what I want. It's a whole nother emotion when you say, that's what I deserve, and I can't believe they have it. 2 completely different things. We don't have time to delve into that, but I just want to make that statement. That's different. You can want it, but when you desire it more than anything else, there's a problem. Okay, so going back to inventory list. The inventory list also makes me think about the innkeeper in the Christmas story, right? So the Bible doesn't actually record like the literal interaction between the innkeeper and Joseph. It never actually says, I may be wrong, you can correct me afterwards, but it never actually says the innkeeper said this and Joseph said this. All that I could find was in Luke 2:7, it said, she brought forth her firstborn son, wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, where is the innkeeper? Why didn't he know where there was stuff at? Why didn't he know that there was another place? Well, obviously there was no room in the inn because we're told, but there was room somewhere in a stable. There was room in a manger. Someone took an inventory of all the places in the city, and somehow, some way, Mary and Joseph found that place. An inventory list is a list of what you have. It's something that you need to make. I feel that an inventory list can provide a place for gratitude to sprout, as well as a chance to grow and to know where you're going and mature. Self-awareness is a key word when it comes to making an inventory list. It means I'm being raw and honest with where I am and what I'm doing. It's knowing where you are so you can get to where you want to go, like making a goals list. So when you make this list, you're checking it twice, not to make yourself feel bad about yourself, but to know where you are. These are the things I have. Because once you make an inventory list, then you can make a list of what I need. You can't have what you need if you don't know what you have. There's no way to know that. And if you do, then come tell me you're magic, because I've never found that. If you don't know where you are and what you have and what you possess, you can't know what you need. When you go on a trip, you make a list of things that you know that you should have, and you put a star by, I might not have this. But then you go and do an inventory, and you do a self-check of everything you have, and then you realize 99.9% of the things on this list I do have. So an inventory list, when it comes to Christmas, what do you have? What do we have in this time, in this era of 2020, and everyone's just so blah about things? What do you have? You have a church family that loves you. You have family around you that wants to get together. You're alive. You're breathing. Some of us just lost people close to us. It'll be our first Christmas without them. You have them. So enjoy the moment. That should be on your inventory list. What do you have? You have breath in your lungs. You're also supposed to praise God with every breath that you have. So when you're making an inventory list, be honest. You have that. Sometimes when iPhones come out again, you're like, man, I got to have that new iPhone. I got to have that new iPhone. But you have a phone that works perfectly fine. So why can't you be okay with what you have? Same thing in the world with God. Same thing with the world with Christmas. You have a God that loves you. There should be nothing else on your list that's more important than him. So we're making a list, and we're checking it twice. Another type of list that, to me, feels like it takes a lifetime to master is a prioritizing list. I knew I was going to say something like that. Okay. A prioritizing list means that I'm ordering things from most important to least important. Oh, you girls know. In junior high, you made a list of the top 5 cute boys. That's a priority list. Maybe not the right priority, but it's a priority list. You're making a list of things that are most important to you. On your Christmas list, whenever you're listing your gifts, you normally list it from the one I want the most to the one I want the least. When I would make my list for my people, I would make the most expensive gift first and then go down the line. So my mom knew exactly to go to the back of the page and go to the last one and be like, that's the one I can afford. So that's just, a priority list. It depends on what you're making a list of, how you list them, and what's going on. There's an illustration used where there's a jar, pebbles, large rocks, and sand. Jeremiah taught it to us, and I remember this back when we were I was in youth, so I think it was like a senior in high school or a freshman in college, doesn't matter. Anyway, so he had a literal jar, and then he had some sand, some pebbles, and some rocks. And when you think about this illustration, it's like, that makes sense. And it came real prevalent in my mind the other day because I have to prioritize what I do in my day, especially as a school counselor. I can imagine that this is going to be my day, and then when I walk into school, it's completely different. Because a kid has a crisis, and that becomes my day. Doesn't matter if I need to set it for testing. Doesn't matter if I need to schedule my seniors for whatever they're taking next. Doesn't matter if I had meetings on my calendar. A crisis always has to take place over what those normal plans were. So when you're prioritizing things, you're like, okay, so what's most important? Everything goes out the window. At the end of the day, we'll make a new list. We'll make a new list. That's the great thing about lists, is that they're not a permanent list. You can crumble it up, write a new one, and move on. So anyway, this is image 1. You've got 3 things you're trying to fit into a jar. And how do you put all 3 in the jar? People will come up with multiple ways of saying, you can put half this, a quarter of this, a little bit of this. Most common, people will say, put the sand in, the pebbles, and then the big rocks. Well, obviously, they don't all fit. Not all 3 can fit if you put your little things first. So if things that are of little importance to you, you decide to do first or put on your list first when you're prioritizing, you're not going to get to do your big things. If you can put image 2 up. So image 2, you put the big things, the medium things, and then the small things. Because when you have your stuff aligned correctly, you have big things like faith, family in first. When you put your pebbles in, like your finances and your friends, then you can put the sand in and it just falls into place. Because sometimes you don't even get to the sand in your day, but at least you got to the big thing. And the big thing is what saves you. So the big thing is what matters. So if this is the only thing that you remember from today, it wasn't even mine, I stole it from someone else. The big things is what matters. Priorities. When you're making a list of priorities, the big things matter. The big things come first. So, Natalie, what does priorities have to do with Christmas? Well, I delved into the Christmas story because I was like, it's such a great season. I want to do something positive, something learning. And I found a few people that had issues with priorities in the Christmas story. A few people missed Christmas and a few people almost missed Christmas, had the opportunity to make a choice to miss it. So first and foremost, we talked about him already. The innkeeper was too busy with those he had rather than to welcome the one that he needed. In Luke 2:7, like we read before, there was no room for him in the inn. Now, obviously, prophecies were made, and this innkeeper may have never heard it, but there should have been room for the king. There should have been room for this guy. He missed out on the birth of his Savior because he decided this building, these people, this money are my priorities. This is what's going first. So if you think about that, where is this interaction in the Bible? We don't really know. This is my interpretation of it, that because the innkeeper didn't have room, he didn't get to witness it. He didn't get to live in it. Number two, King Herod was so wrapped up in his selfishness and pride that he actually wanted to kill Jesus because he felt he'd be a better king than him, and he never got to lay his eyes on baby Jesus. Not once. You know, Herod tainted the season of Jesus' infancy. He didn't only not see him, but he made his life, the first few years of life, terrible because he wanted to kill all the babies, all of them. And he literally killed tons of innocent children because of it. So not only did King Herod miss the birth of Jesus Christ and get to witness him, he caused innocent children not to witness it as well. So where was King Herod's priorities? It was with his selfishness and his pride. Contrary to common belief, the wise men did not show up at the birth of Jesus. I know all your nativity scenes have him there. I know We Three Kings of Orient are, blah, 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 all the songs. I'm sorry to break your heart. They weren't there the night of. They showed up later. Now you say, Natalie, why do you say they missed it? They didn't miss Jesus. They did not see him. They saw him eventually, but couldn't they have gotten there faster? Couldn't they have been there earlier? In my opinion, again, this is not something I found in the Bible. This is something that after researching and going through things I found, we can talk about it later. In my opinion, they probably could have bypassed seeing the king and kept going. They didn't need to stop first and see these people and talk to these things. They could have just gone straight to where they needed to go. Now, they were going from a far place, okay? Like, they didn't have cars and trains and boats. And so, obviously, it was going to take a while. By the time they got there, they had this chance of almost missing him, but they didn't. And they were welcomed in, and they got to witness Jesus. So, their priorities were a little bit out of line, possibly, but they got them back in order, and they saw the king, and they witnessed what he was going to do. And honestly, number 4, someone else that almost missed it, in my opinion, was Joseph. And I know you're like, what? He married Mary. Like, Natalie, what are you thinking? Okay, Joseph had the opportunity of a lifetime to decide not to. He had the choice. If we're being human right now, okay, we're being human, a guy and a girl are engaged, and the girl is pregnant, obviously we feel that something's happened, okay? I'm just gonna put that out there. So Joseph was someone who was in high holding, like people loved him in his community, but he was engaged to this girl who was pregnant and no one understood why. And until an angel came to him and said in Matthew 1:18, this is the birth of Jesus Messiah came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph, but before they came together, she was found pregnant in the Holy Spirit. Because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the law and yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace, he had a mind to divorce her quietly. He thought about it for a second. He was like, well, if I don't want to shame her, I might just go this pathway. But it was just momentary. It was just that humanistic quality of this might not be that important. Christmas Eve service might not be that great. I might not pray today. I might not read the word today. I might not go to church because I'm just not feeling that great today. All of these things, these excuses of what is or what could have been, could have definitely directed Joseph's path in a total opposite direction, especially if you ask me. In verse 20, it says, but after he considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save people from their sins. What would the Christmas story look like if Jesus didn't answer the call of an angel? What would it look like? Would Mary be a single mom? Would Jesus ever get brothers and sisters? Would Jesus be raised correctly? Because Joseph answered the call and his list of priorities said God first, he was able to answer it and go forth, and the Christmas story came out like we know today. That's an interesting thought to me. What if? What if he wouldn't have? Now, it may be just because I like to go to like the far ends of the earth to find like the worst possible case scenario, but that's just like my literature, like let's find the worst story plot line and figure out how to do a rags to riches story. But anyway, going back to it, when you think about that, like Joseph had the opportunity of a lifetime to choose not to, but he chose to. And obviously traveling where he was a long time, a long place, but it all comes back to priorities. Pastor has taught multiple times about priorities, like the F word series, faith, family, fun, finances. If you don't remember, you need to go to our Facebook page and watch them. They are a series that I watch over and over again because it's something that you always need to be reminded of. You can make a list every day and you can throw it away and write a new one. But if you're not writing it according to the right way, then your lists, they're just a list. It's just some words on a page. You're not following a pattern. But when you make something priority, it doesn't matter if you have no time. You're going to make time. You're going to make time. My priorities in my life, it's always church first. You can probably find me here on a Friday night at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to fix our website. Like, church comes first. I don't have a family right now to take care of. Things might change time-wise and stuff like that when that happens in my life. But as of now, I'm able to, and so I do. When pastor says, I need this, I run and I do it immediately. So does Rachel, so does many of our youth. That's priorities. We know who's important, and we know who to obey, and we know that God's going to come through in the end and tell us what to do. Like, this is just how it happens. But lists. You see, God, he made lists too. Oh, yes, he did. He made a list of commandments, of things you should not do. He even listed out in Isaiah 43:2 a promise to be with us. He listed out things not to be afraid of. He said he also made a list of things of what we should be, things that we should portray, like the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. He made lists. God was a list maker, and I'm so glad because it makes me feel a little bit better about making so many lists, But anyway, these things that I listed: love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. All of these things are things that we should possess if we are Christ-like. And if you don't have that list somewhere in your house, you need to make that list, and you should be praying over those qualities daily because those are things that you should possess. Those are things that you should have. But Christ-like Christians, Christmas. Now, I don't speak Spanish, but I do know that MAS means more, mas. Because I have a Spanish kid, and when she needs more, she'll just say mas. And I love her to death. She doesn't speak English. She's amazing. Google Translate saves my life. But anyway, so Christmas. Did you know that Christmas could mean Christ more? More of Christ. Like I love words. I love that God does this intricately like this. Christ more. When you're making a list, you should always have Christ more in your list. And don't we need him more every day? I mean, it might just be me, but I think everyone needs him every day. But when we're making our list, let's not forget about Christ and make our list by checking them twice for Christ. Christ should be at the top. So your priorities, your descriptions, whatever you're making a list for, Christ should be first. So thank you for tuning in this morning. Thanks for joining me and talking about my crazy list. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you guys at 10:30.